And I'm just going to use the same like right triangle to develop all these. So I don't know. I've got these different steps where that's where I picked up the radius of that particular point. I'll just keep toggling them on if they get kind of. I always put these on different layers to where, sometimes this one gets in my way when I go to the next one, so I can toggle it on and off. The initial first one I did, once I kind of establish its true length line, sometimes I just toggle these off. They kind of clean it up in my top view, so that's maybe what I'll do. And I'm going to go to the next set of lines, which I did 2 in one step here, I guess is what I did. I kind of pulled the blue true length and the magenta true length. So yeah. So let's just go with the blue one first. So I actually went to point B on this because that's, the blue ones don't go to point E. So I'm kind of moving away from that. That was kind of just a halfway pattern. Now I'm coming back to my actual corner. So the blue one terminates at point B here in the top view. And then I just pulled a circle that intersects point 3 here. So the cool thing about that is it kind of demonstrates they are the same length of line. As notice the circle passes through point 2 here also. So it's the same radius circle that represents both of these. It's just the nature of how we divided this geometry, and then you end up getting this this to where when I'm building something symmetrical like I'm doing, this actually works for both of my lines, which I kind of discussed. So, and that just kind of shows it when I snap a circle, man, it passes through both ways. That one circle is picking up both 2 and 3 points, 5 and 6. All of these, whether it's point A to 12 and 11, it's going to be the same distance as that. So once I snapped that circle, I just copied that, came down here and pasted it on the same line. That one does kind of represent B now as a thing because I am working from point B now, And I snap that circle and it establishes this new length, out here on this line, which now I'm going to take to the same point up top that relates to the elevation in this next one. Bam. And I named that too. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this, get it out of the way here. But that's, I just point 3 and 2 from my top view that I just used are now referenced right here. And that's the actual true length of what my light blue line is from my top view. So it's anyway substantially longer. Maybe I'll do I'm dimension. This is kind of interesting to me. So I'm going to pull this dimension now. So this is 0.75096. So if we want to relate how that compares to what that view looks like in the front view, let's go over here. And let's pull, I'm going to escape from here. Let's pull this dimension now. So that one's the point that represents point 3 or 2. So let's see what I pick up in the actual front view and see what kind of the margin of error is here. You can see that if I pull this one out, it tells me if I was looking at it in that view. I'm going to delete this one that related to the first one I pulled, but yeah, it actually tells me that, oh yeah, that's like 6.8843. If I were to grab that line and use it in my pattern, I would be substantially short. It's actually 7.5 inches, and I'm only picking up 8.875, so that's 6 7/8, and just barely more than that. And this is 7.5, a little bit of change. So yeah, man, we pick up what is that, like 5/8 difference in length by actually grabbing its true length. So it held true on the E to 4, only in that one spot. For the other ones, it doesn't hold true. So yeah, cool. I thought that's cool. So I'm going to go ahead and delete those. And we'll see how far off the magenta colored ones are next. So delete that one. And then I've done the same thing. Once I've established that circle, I went ahead and pulled this new circle, which is from center point as the top of my elevation right here, and pull this circle out to those points. And now that becomes kind of the radius I'm going to use to draw my actual flat pattern. So let's see what I did next. Should have been the magenta colored. Yeah. In that last step, I should probably move that to me. This should kind of move to that last step I just toggle on 9A. I'm going to actually move that while I'm thinking about this. Well, it says it was in 9A. That's interesting. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, anyway. If I turn off 9A, does that turn off now? Well, I'll look into that. This should go to line A. 9A, it says it is. Seems to be coming on. It doesn't seem to go away when I do that, though. I wonder if I've got two of them there. Anyway, okay. Same difference here. I use B as my center, and I'm pulling this circle up to where it intersects here. It's going to be 0.4. It also passes through 0.1. So I'm pulling this radius. You can see that they pass through both points. That means the line from B to 1 is the same length as the line from B to 4. And that one circle will be sufficient to do both of those lines plus all the rest on this whole pattern. So I bring it down here to the same line. It appears to be the longest line of all of them. And I'm going to toggle that on and come up with my actual length on my pattern. And I've got that labeled as 0.4 and up to up to my elevation. So it's kind of interesting how I've interpreted that. I've kind of just done that to keep myself straight, that because I pull these circles kind of in the top view from point B, I guess I've labeled them down this way, and that's kind of arbitrary too. Whatever kind of keeps you straight. Just know that these initial circles that are down here are from the top view, and then I pull all these lines, which are the hypotenuse of my Pythagorean theorem triangles, related to the elevation. So however I chose to label that would be fine. I guess I'm kind of viewing that I'm labeling these. I was initially thinking that I was labeling all these and numbered up to the elevation because they kind of represent that too. But bottom line is, however I choose to number it to keep it straight is fine. I'm just kind of I think I'm interpreting that the initial reference circle that I pull from the top view, I'm just naming it that across this line and then referencing it back to the actual elevation, and I pick up those true lengths. So with these true lengths, I'm actually ready to develop this pattern. And you might see me just like turn off some of these initial development lines. I'll just clean those up. So now I've just got the actual circle lines, circle dimensions that I'm going to use for a pattern. So the next step should be that I start my pattern. So, and the way I start my pattern is, which showed up far to my right here. I haven't numbered much yet, except for I have this floating number 4 that's shown up. But the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to do this starting over here on the right side of this squared around. Like I said, I'm probably just going to develop kind of this side, and I'm going to be able to multiply that pattern by 4 to get this complete. So what I like to do, you'll see me, I draw my patterns a lot in red. That's why I have a red line over there. But all that red line is the first thing I take is the actual dimension of the square, which is an 8-inch line. So I've got this line that's from B to C, which is an 8-inch line. I know that's a true length that I'm seeing there. Same thing I would pick up in the front view. I'm seeing true lengths in the bottom square. So I come over here, and the first thing I do is just draw a straight line that is 8 inches long. So if I dimension this and we check that out, this thing should be 8 inches. Sure is. So that's my 8-inch line. It represents one bottom edge of the square. And then what I did is from the midpoint, I just snapped from the middle of that. So if that represents from B to C, the midpoint of that line is going to be E to 4, which was the first line that I developed on my Pythagorean theorem triangle, which is from E to 4, which is my yellow dotted circle. So essentially what I'm kind of doing is working, the true length from B to C, and then from E to 4 is my first kind of start to this pattern. So that's what I do. I just copy this yellow circle from my triangle, my development triangle, and copy that and post it, and from the midpoint here, which should be able to pick up if you have midpoint selected, you'd be able to drop that as the center of circle. It would establish this length, this far arc out here, which I can just draw a line now that would be E to 4. And I probably pick up that labeling system in one of these steps, maybe this next one. Yeah, there it is. I actually labeled it. So that just shows, this next step just shows that I just went from E to 4 at its true length. I named these B to C because that is where I started. It's an 8-inch line. And Then from there, I could just draw in the 2 magenta lines. It's funny, I didn't even need to like drop that development circle to do that. If I come back to my pattern, if I think of myself as if I've drawn in B to C, and I've drawn in E to 4 at true length, then I just know that the first magenta lines, they go to point 4 when I develop this pattern. So I can draw those in without even dropping, without even copying and pasting the actual magenta colored circle. I just know that right there, I just can draw a new line, and I kept them that same magenta color, and I just snapped a new line from B to 4. Bam. And I've got kind of a start to my pattern here. Now I'm into the next step here. And so what do I do? Let's see. I'm going to toggle it on. Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and toggle off the yellow line that I used to initially start my pattern. And now what I've done is I've picked up a new orange circle, which might be mysterious, but I'll go look at the top view for that. And then I've picked up my blue circles from down below. So maybe what I'll show you here is I'll actually do this step for you. So yeah, if you come back over to my top view, what I'm looking to do now, and I'll just delete this one too, is I'm looking to like step. So in my pattern to the far right, I've got these 2 magenta colored lines on. Now I'm going to go to the blue colored line. So what I need to do for the top round section of my pattern is pick up the spacing from like 4 to 5, and essentially from 4 to 3 if I'm thinking of kind of developing this kind of quarter of the round pattern here. So that's what I'm gonna do is I probably just used an orange like this. And I'll go ahead and turn this off, and I'll come back to this. I'm on 11B, so okay. I grabbed a circle, and I guess I kept that a solid line. Whatever you want to do is fine. Grab this circle, and I just need to pick up this distance, kind of like we've done with other patterns. Like I'm looking to pick up that distance there, which is the same. The funny thing is that's a circle divided by 12, so I only need that one reference circle. It really represents every space from every line segment in all 12. I mean, it's 1/12 of the triangles, or the 1/12 of the circles, essentially what that is. So I first need to pick up that. That tells me what it is from 4 to 5 and from 4 to 3. And then I'm going to copy that, and I want to take that information to the top of the pattern over there. So I take that, so I know that, okay, cool, this is the center of point 4. Bam, I drop that there. And that shows me like, okay, somewhere out here is like 0.5 and 0.3 over here somewhere. I just don't know where that is. I can't just pick any place. I've got to have some kind of a crisscross pattern here to find out what that is. So I just know that from 4, I've kind of picked up a spacing here. I just don't know where on that arc the actual next line segment is going to be. So what I do is, if I know that the next one, oh, these were my blue colored lines here. 5 and 3 had a blue colored line. And so, yeah, let me see here. Let's see. So I'm going to take my blue colored line right here. That represents the radius of this is the true length of the blue line. So, and I'm going to reference it from point B and point C, right? Yeah. Over here on my pattern. So I can actually drop this thing twice, because I'm kind of building this pattern kind of each side at the same time here. So I'm going to drop this twice. And what that did is it just gave me a point where it intersects, and I kind of got to keep this straight. Like I can see that this is the circle from point C, and where it intersects right there is where my point 5 would be, is right there, where that circle intersects that other circle. So, and likewise, yeah, so likewise down here where this circle, I'll just go ahead and escape from there, where that circle intersects the lower part of the circle is point 3 there. So if I actually toggle on my next set of steps here, it should show me that I draw those lines in. See that? So I just use those circles to reference that point, and that helped me define those points. And then I've drawn them in. I've kept those the same color just so I know that, oh yeah, that's my light colored, that's my light blue colored line, goes to 0.5 and 3. I actually draw just a straight line segment. You know, I think I didn't even use the polyline or anything. I just used a straight line segment to draw in the top of the pattern, and that's, each one of these lines is kind of 1/12 of the circular pattern here. So the next thing is I need some like more orange circles, because I need to know where 0.6 out here is going to be and where 0.2 out here is going to be. And that's funny that I don't need to drop a new blue circle, because if I look over at my top view here, the next ones I'm looking for is from 5 to 6 and from 3 to 2. And it's the same blue circle that does both of those. So I don't need to do that again. It's already there. I just need to drop some new orange circles. So that should be what I do in my next, yep, exactly. I drop a couple more orange circles, which help me define this point out here as 0.6, and this point out here is 0.2. So let's just see if that's what I draw in, which would be another kind of magenta color, or sorry, light blue colored line. Bam, right there. And I even named them 6 and 2. So then that's actually like 1, 2, 3, 4. That's actually a quarter. That's essentially is kind of a quarter pattern of the a quarter of the circle up top there. So yeah. Yeah, very good. So kind of like one, yeah, I'm actually, now what I've kind of developed is from 6 all the way to 2. I guess it's kind of like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. Oh yeah, it's actually, I've actually developed like a third of the pattern if I think about that. Like I've just now over there on my far right, I've kind of gone from 0.2 to 0.6 in the round, and I've actually developed a little longer. Like if I think of a, I'll show you what I do next, is I actually divide it in by a true like quarter pattern. So, which is kind of easy to do on something that's totally square to round. It's easy to divide this pattern however I want it, because it's very symmetrical. So I think on the next view, I just, yeah, that's exactly what I do. So what I've just done is, you can see that I took and added some new red lines, and I didn't even have to really do any like new drawing or taking it from anywhere else. But what I did is I ended up, because I drew like these as each independent line segments, they kind of have a midpoint on them. Like, and maybe what I want to do is get rid of my blue circles here, which maybe is that one. I don't know which one it is. Not that one. Not that. Oh, you know what? It was on a layer, but then I deleted those and redrew them for you guys. So I'm going to go ahead and delete those right now. Just clean up my pattern a little bit. So I can keep my orange. I can move my orange ones off if they're confusing me, but my pattern actually is just the red top is the round, and then all the outer perimeter lines here. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to reference that I actually want to, I draw a new line right to the midpoint of between 5 and 6 and 2 and 3, because I think I already told you that this is actually a third of the pattern. It's like 4 spaces around the top, and I'm not doing a third of patterns. I kind of want to do a quarter pattern. So essentially, I'd like this to have just like 3 spacings around the top, but I can't just like only take 3 of these. I end up dividing between 5 and 6 in half, and between 2 and 3 in half. And so when I draw this last segment in, that's what I've done. I've just like snapped a new line from C, and I just snapped it to the midpoint between 5 and 6. If I have that midpoint selected as a node point, I can drop that line there. Same thing going from B to between 2 and 3. Like I can just snap that midpoint there, and then I just retrace that as a kind of, I think I'd retrace that maybe as like a polyline, because now you can see this is what's popping here is actually that's a quarter pattern right there. So, and then I just like copied and pasted that out right there. So that's what just came out of that. That's what came out of this system right here, is I just like copied that and drug it and snapped it down here. So if I look back to my top view, I drew in some new red lines to kind of tell you, oh, this is where I divided my pattern. It was just right in between the 2 node points. Like if I actually how I actually do that is I think I took a line from C to A and snapped a line there, and then from B to D, like I just kind of bisected from corner to corner, just drew an X across my squared around. And then I just trimmed those out around the round, and that shows me that where my pattern actually terminates is between 5 and 6, right in the middle, and between 2 and 3. And that's the same pattern if I was to interpret it from kind of 11.5 to 2.5. That becomes the same pattern from 2.5 to 5.5, and from 5.5 over to 8.5. And from 8.5 back over to 11.5. Like each one of those is just the same pattern. And so and what that shows me here is that that's actually putting my weld seam in the corner. And it's a 4-piece pattern. It would have 4 welds. And that's just a way to divide that. You know, I could take this, I could then take and manipulate this into, I could change this pattern any way I want to change it. So I think in the view, I don't think I do that on here, but I'm going to do that now.